Welcome to another edition of Chasing Legends of the Superstition Mountains. Welcome back. This episode, I'm going to talk about a story. I was actually directly involved in this story. It was during the, I believe this was the second annual rendezvous. And I'd come out. There was a lot going on in life at the time. This would probably be 2005, 2006, somewhere around there. And I'd come out and set up camp. And the next morning we got up and there was a group, Randy Wright, Greg Davis, Peter Esposito, Kevin Nunemacher, I think, did that. But there was a group of us going to go out to the soldier's grave out past the quarter circle U and go check on things out there. So we were going to do that, take some pictures and stuff. And the group left before I was ready to go. I was believe it or not, I don't know who was all there, but I was talking to Brad Cooper, Joe and Carolyn Roboto, and a number of people in the camp, talking to them after I was camped down on the very far lower camp. Randy was camped up more in the upper camp with everybody, and I camped down the lower camp off to myself. And I know Brad Cooper and I were talking quite a bit that morning. I got up, had breakfast, and the guys had left, so I figured, well, I want to catch up to them. And I remember going up and getting coffee with Joe and Carolyn. They said Greg and all them and Randy had taken off. So I was like, well, I'm going to finish my cup of coffee. I'm going to jump in my truck. I think I had that was my Bronco back then. And I'm going to run up, try to catch them at the quarter circle U. So I got in my Bronco, took off, went down. Howard Hornick was out in there working at the time. Pulled in, and saw Howard and what's up. And he said they'd been through about 30, 40 minutes earlier, and you got to go through the ranch to get through there. And I said, well, I'm never going to catch them. So at this point, because they're going to be parked down the trail, and I wasn't quite sure where the soldier's grave was at the time. That's why I wanted to go on the trip. So Howard took me on a personal tour of the ranch. We walked around. He was working, doing some stuff, and me and Howard just spent an hour or so, hour and a half, 2 hours, talking. And it was kind of nice, just me and Howard working around, and he was telling me stories of things he'd seen in the mountains and things, one of the questions I had for him, and I wish I would have filmed it or talked more at length, but I was asking him about things at night, because he's out there by himself at night, and all the history that had been out in that area. And I asked him, do you ever hear people or anything walking around? Is there anything ever? And Howard was telling me, I always hear voices and people walking around out here at night, and I know I'm the only one out here. But he said, I've been here so long, I don't even pay attention to it. Howard could spin a story, so who knows. Well, we'd been sitting there and carried on for a while, and Joe and Carolyn Roboto, and I know there was another couple, and I'm trying to remember their names offhand. I can't remember their names offhand. And it's just there at the tip of my tongue, but they came up on their quads. And I thought, well, I'm going to be courteous and let them have some time with Howard, because I had this couple hours of time with Howard hearing all these stories about his time on the ranch and going through everything. So I figured, well, I'll just get on back down the road. So I got my truck, told everybody bye. I'm going to head back to the Don's camp. And I was driving out. I was going by the old Lost Dutchman store, which I know a number of guys that owned and run it down there. So I thought, well, I might as well take here. You never know when the thing's just going to fall apart or somebody's going to be stupid and burn it down. So might as well just take some pictures. I remembered it when it was open. I thought it's kind of different take of taking pictures of it now that it was all closed down and abandoned and fallen apart. So I went in and I started taking some pictures, and I got all that. It was an old 35 millimeter Canon camera, and I was taking pictures of the outside, inside, and they were excellent pictures. It's early morning still. It's probably 9, 10 o'clock. And I was walking around, and at that time, someone's cut the lumber out, but there was one of the walls when you first went in still there, the frame of the wall. And as I was taking pictures, I realized I'd spent a couple days of the rendezvous, and there wasn't a single picture of me. And that's always problematic for a lot of people like myself that spend a lot of times by themselves in the mountains and doing things. There's no pictures of you. So I messed with the camera, and then I figured out how you could do the take a selfie, early selfie. So I set this down, and I set it, and I let it run a picture, and then I looked at it, and I thought, okay, it looks good. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get around there and take a picture. So I set the camera up, and I got it set, and then I walked around behind where the counter was, and I pretended like it's a bar. And I sat there, or I stood there, and I said, anybody who's ready, and this is to paraphrase, but it was like, bar's open, come up get your drinks, or, you know, hey, anybody want to join me for a drink? And picture was taken. Didn't think much of it, got the camera, took some more pictures of the inside, outside, through the windows. There's no glass in the windows, no glass on the floor anymore. So I took all the pictures and thought, okay, that's pretty cool. Got some nice pictures of this. So doing that, go back to the rendezvous and, you know, everything to do with the rendezvous, and finish up, go home, and then I get the pictures processed. Well, I get the pictures processed, and I started going through them, and the only picture with me in it is that picture behind there, and it looked like there's this, like, you know, you get that flash thing or something, light refraction. And I just kind of went, crap. And I threw it aside and thought, man, that really sucks, because that's the only picture with me in it. Well, at the time, back in those days, there was a forum, and it still exists. It's Lost Dutchman Forum. I know Ron Feldman was involved in that, and that was the whole reason spurring on the rendezvous, where we all talked, and the rendezvous kind of literally began and sprung from that forum. And probably the best forum that's ever been done concerning the Lost Dutchman, because it was a lot of the guys that spent a lot of time in the mountains. There was a lot of good input. And then, of course, the H&D, hate and discontent, gets into people who don't like each other, and that caused a lot of problems there. But there was a lot of good information. Everybody shared a lot. Anyhow, they had a photo album there, and it's still there. I believe it's still in the photo section, if they have it still up as part of it. I know the forum's there. And if you're ever looking, it's Zentull, Zentull. Everything's under Zentull Mine in there. And I decided to post some pictures of the rendezvous. Everybody was doing a little photo album, so I said, okay, I'll post my pictures, the ones I got. So I posted my pictures, and I had the one of myself, so I figured I'll put it up. And I just put it in. I didn't think anything of it. It never really occurred to me. I remember I was disappointed because of all the light refraction on the side. And so I'm like, okay, it's all good, you know, put it up there. So that night, that very night, Randy Wright calls me, my buddy, my Dutch hunting partner, says, hey, you know, he's talking to me. And I said, yeah, you know, he said, what was up with that picture at the Lost Dutchman store? And I said, well, I took that. He said, you guys went out to the soldier's grave, and I couldn't get, I told you about that. So I stopped by there and decided to take a whole photo set there. Probably did 2 rolls of film. And I told him, figured the lighting, everything's good early morning. Everything looked good. So I figured I'd take a couple rolls of pictures and have those, you know. And he said, well, my wife was looking over my shoulder, and she was asking what's up with the ghost in the picture. I said, what are you talking about? He said, you need to take a closer look and look at that picture. So I got the original out, set it down, didn't even go online to look at the one I put up. I wanted to look at the original. And I'm looking at it, and then I realized right to my left, it looks like there's a man, and it looks like it's a white filmy apparition. And you can clearly see the guy's standing there with a cowboy hat on, and his right arm's crooked, like this, like he's taking a drink, standing right next to me. And I was like, really? Because I'm a skeptic. So I thought that was really cool. I asked several other people to look at the one online. I said, look, it's the same as the one I got at home. Everybody saw the same thing. Everybody kind of had the same, like, yeah, what's up with that? What's going on with that? What's going on? So I went down and talked to Howard, showed it to him. Howard thought it was funny. I didn't think it was so funny. But when I went down, I took more pictures. For the next 4 or 5 rendezvous, every day on a Saturday morning, I got up, I went down there, and at the same exact times, I took photographs. I used the same camera, and then I used my cell phone later. But I always would do the 35 millimeter, so I have multiple years of doing the same angle, taking the same pictures. I could never get the same effect. So I got something to back it up. I tried to recreate it. I never could. I looked through. There's no glass in the windows. There's no glass on the floor. There's nothing to get light. I tried everything possible to get that picture. And we'll put it up and you can see what you think, but it's clear as day. There's a gentleman standing there with his arm crooked like he's getting ready to take a drink in a cowboy hat. Now, there were a couple people passed away. The name escapes me. There's a newspaper article on it of a gentleman that was shot supposedly outside along Peralta Road. I've also heard the story that he was shot inside the store. I believe Bob Ward was somehow involved and attached to this, but his body was found later down Peralta Road and he'd been shot. And Lee Compton was his name. And I've heard some various stories how someone said they could see where they had drug him out in the blood and where they drug him out and down the road and dropped him off. I will not give names. Trevor smiles. But we will not give names unless those people want to tell the story themselves. However, there was himself, and then there was another individual that had worked at the Quarter Circle U that had had a heart attack right in that stretch. So, not knowing who it could be, and you really can't get like any details on the person, but it was someone taller than me, probably significantly taller, and wearing a cowboy hat and sitting there. So you be the judge for yourself. It's kind of one of the odder things I've ever come up with out of the mountains. Probably when people say there's been things that have happened, and I always try to think there's a logical, rational reason, but this is one I could never change out, and it's existed all this time. And I put it out there for the production company and everybody else of something that it'd be cool just to use this, just so someone could see if they could come up with a rhyme reason of what could have happened and what could have caused the effect, because I really don't want to think there was this cowboy next to me having a drink. But anyhow, you be the judge of that. Thank you for joining us here at Chasing Legends, and until the next time, vaya con Dios.